finally reach the top, you're at the bottom. Then you start looking elsewhere. George Harrison, singer-songwriter and member of the Bugs. Hello to all and welcome to the Ear-Wicker podcast. Follow along with our host, Vince Corkery, as he discusses a broad range of musical topics, with interviews of top players, club owners, producers, and engineers that make it all happen. Your virtual backstage pass. Remember to like and subscribe to this podcast, and of course, it's free.
I'll never be untrue. Oh, baby, let's stay together, loving you
Hello to all, and welcome to Ear-Wicker Podcast. And today, we have a very special guest. He's a musician, a writer. I think that's all I know about you right now.
Bon vivant, man about town.
All right, man about town. This is Dan Duncan. Hey, Dan, thank you so much for coming over and spending time with us here, and really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I'm just going to start. It's like,
right.
Are you from St. Louis?
Yeah, I am. I'm from, basically grew up in Ferguson, Missouri.
Oh,
the
okay.
famous Ferguson.
Yeah, a lot of musicians from around there.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, what a lot of people don't know about Ferguson is in the time specifically when I was growing up, it was heavy into the arts. Oh. Seriously, I mean, a lot of my friends' parents were actors and actresses. The lady across the street from us was a professional artist. I was in a youth theater group every summer, and lots of musicians. Growing up, I gravitated toward that, I suppose. But a lot of my friends were and still are musicians who came from Ferguson. So it's weird how it turned out because a number of them have done quite well.
Oh, yeah. So what attracted you to the guitar, or what was that your first instrument?
My first instrument was really a 5-string banjo, only because it seemed like everybody I knew was taking up the guitar. You know, this is back in the 1960s, of course, and, Beatles influence, and everybody was playing the guitar. So I wanted to do something different. And I did like bluegrass music, even back then. Oh. So I asked my parents if they would buy me a banjo, so that we, typical of the times we ordered one, a Silvertone out of the Sears catalog. Perfect. And so I started to learn how to pick the banjo, and years later, I took some lessons from John Tickner over at Music Folk, and he was teaching me, a certain style of banjo. I was really more interested in the Earl Scruggs, picking style. Oh. I only got so far, honestly. I think I'm a little lazy, and I got to a certain level and just stayed there. So I never did much with it. I really got interested in percussion. Actually, I'd been, in my own head since I was a little kid. I was crazy about percussion. I remember when I was really young, 7 years old, I saw a TV show with African drummers, and I was absolutely entranced. And I just felt like I had a natural gift for it. And I used to get in trouble all the way through school, from from elementary school. The first time I remember 4th grade getting in trouble for drumming on my desk. It was a constant habit. I drummed, on everything. My mattress at night going to sleep because it had a great sound coming through my pillow. And later on my steering wheel in my car and at the family dinner table, my dad would say, "Quit drumming," So I got in trouble all the time, but it was just a natural thing for me to be drawn toward. And so I guess when I was about 17, I bought my first drum set, a Blue Sparkle, just like that. Okay. And to my parents' chagrin, I was up on the 3rd floor of our house playing drums for hours on end, learning, trying to learn Beatles and Stone songs and whatnot. And my parents would have to yell up, "Knock it off!" And so that was my introduction to my own involvement with music. I didn't really play in bands. I played around with friends once in a while. Honestly, I never felt like I had the chops. I compare myself to some of my friends who were really good drummers, and I went, I wound up seeking a career, and a lot of my friends, stayed in music and went into music as professional. But I didn't really get into playing like I am now with a band until I got older. And as I approached retirement, I kept thinking, oh, it would be fun. Like I like to play hand percussion. That's my favorite. When I was about 20, I bought my first set of really nice gonbop congas, and that was really where I felt I was most comfortable. And so as I got older, I was thinking, well, when I retire, maybe it'd be fun if I could find one of my buddies that's playing like wineries or something and just play congas with them. And this thing came along, this thing being the group I'm playing with, the Forestwood Boys, with two old friends of mine, if I can brag on them a little bit. One is Pat Malloy, and Pat and I have been friends. Another Ferguson kid, grew up together. Pat's first band, when he was like 14, I think, was called Mike and the Majestics, and lead singer was Michael McDonald, but it was also Steve Scarfina, who wound up going years later with REO Speedwagon for a while, and then Pavlov's Dog. Bobby Bortz, that's my friend who's a drummer who I compare myself against, and I couldn't hold a candle. And then when Mike left Mike and the Majestics to go with another band, a soul band with a horn section called the Sheratons, Jared J and the Sheratons, the band shifted to become the Good Feelin', and you'd have to be a certain age to know who they were. But this was became a very popular group around St. Louis. Played all over teen towns and clubs. And
now this is the band you were in?
No. I worked for them just because these were my buddies.
Oh, okay.
And Pat was a member of the Good Feelin', and then that lasted for several years. Then he went with, he became a member of a group called Blue, and that's the group in which Mike McDonald was discovered and wound up going to California with a record contract. And then Pat went on with the Bushwhackers, which was the house band out at Burnham's Opera House, and he played with Burns and Bono. If you remember Russ Bono.
Yeah, sure.
He's another good friend of ours. He was part of Blue.
Oh, okay.
And then the other person, so Pat is the one that put the Forestwood Boys together 9 years ago, and the other member, which is a trio, is Mike Newman.
Oh, sure.
You know who Mike is?
Oh, I do know Mike. Yeah.
Mike, at the same time that we were, the Good Feelin' was just thriving and doing well, playing the Castaway and the Rainy Days clubs and whatnot. The Aardvarks were also kind of a competing group, but also we were all friends, and that's where Mike, cut his teeth. And so he was with them for a number of years, and then he was with Fairchild for I don't know, 20, 25 years, and they had a good long run. Yeah. So these are the two guys. This is where the bulk of the talent of our band is, right up front. Those two guys. Mike's a heck of a guitar player.
Yes,
he really is.
Absolutely.
Pat's a good bass player. They're both good singers. They sing great harmony. So I'm just in the background providing some percussion and having a blast doing it.
Oh, that's great. Wow. So what year was that? When you were doing this?
Playing
in the background.
Oh, well, we started in 2016, and we're still playing.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then for a while, I also played with another group, most recently called the Bishops, which is a two-person group here in St. Louis, a father-son duo, Danny Bishop and Matt Bishop. Dan, the dad, is guitar virtuoso and really good saxophone player, which is unusual to find somebody who's that talented on two different kinds of instruments, but he is. And Matt, his son, is also a heck of a guitar player. So they play all instrumentals. I really enjoyed playing with them because it gave me an opportunity to play some Latin stuff, jazz, fusion, rock, and I mean we did everything from Led Zeppelin to bossa nova, and I thoroughly enjoyed. But last year I kind of, it was too much for me. I'm good with sticking with one group, getting old, and so Forestwood Boys is my focus, and. We really just go out and have a good time when we play.
Yeah, right. Where are you playing?
All over place. Lately, we were playing at C.J. Muggs in Webster until they collapsed and became something different. Yeah. We played down at Das Bevo, the old Bevo Mill. They've got a wonderful beer garden down there.
Yeah, that's happening.
We play wineries, and we play different bars around town here and there, and a private gig once in a while. We just played a party 3-4 weeks ago over in Illinois. So wherever whoever wants us will pay us, we'll go.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. And this is the Forest Wood Boys?
The Forest Wood Boys,
All
yeah.
right, yeah.
And it's basically named after the neighborhood that Pat and Mike Scorfina grew up in Ferguson when we were boys,
okay.
the Forest Wood neighborhood. And I grew up on the other side of Ferguson, Old Town Ferguson. So,
Okay.
so as I say, all of our buddies pretty much are still playing music all these years later.
Yeah,
Bobby
yeah.
Bort's my one buddy that's a drummer. He's kind of laid up with a bad back, so he can't play anymore. But everybody else is. Russ Bono's down in Florida. He's playing all the time.
I was wondering what happened
Yeah,
to him. Yeah,
he's
okay.
he's still playing, still doing well.
Wow, yeah.
Who would have thunk it? You know?
I know. Well, that's great. It just tells you what, music does for the soul, I guess.
Well, Newman always says, I told him just recently, it's like when I'm not feeling well, when we play, I feel just fine. He goes, that's the magic of music. He said, it's always been that way for me. If I don't feel well, I play music and I'm fine. And I thought, well, that's a really interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah. That's great. Now, have you written a book? Did I hear anything like that?
Oh, Curtis must have told
Yeah,
you that.
he did,
Yeah,
yeah.
I have. That was another goal I had when I was still working. I worked in the substance abuse field. Worked for the National Council on Alcohol and Drug Abuse for many years. I knew that when I retired, I really wanted to write a book, and I had an idea. And so it's all done, and now it's, it's not published. And publishing is not easy if you're, not a published author. The only things I've had published were in professional journals or the St. Louis Post-Dispatch op-eds for my work, that I did. So now I'm going to be up against the usual thing that most first-time writers are is first, can I find a literary agent that will represent me, and then can he or she find me a publisher? So that's what I'm working on. I have one other iron in the fire, but I don't want to talk about it because I don't want to jinx it.
Sure.
I love to write.
Oh, okay. So that's an interesting subject. Alcohol and drug abuse.
That's not what I wrote about.
Oh,
No, this is a piece of fiction. This is. If you look at my ring, there's a little picture of a wizard.
Oh,
throwing
yeah,
a star.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I've had that since I was 18. I bought that at a head shop when I was 18, and here I am.
Head shop.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Spent my days, plenty of days in the head shop.
Yeah.
I just had an idea years ago to write about a kid who's descended of Merlin. And not to be confused with Harry Potter, because it's not the same kind of book, and my idea came way before I ever heard of that. But I wasn't sure what direction the book was going to take exactly, and it was weird once I started writing and I got into it. It just kind of took off on its own. It was a most pleasurable writing experience I've had, and so I'm proud of it, and we'll see. Again, it is not easy. That's one thing I've learned as I've studied this is if you're not published, the publishing world refers to you as meaning unpublished, and they generally will reject your work kind of out of hand. And so it's a tough thing. It's kind of like music. You can have a lot. There's so many talented musicians around, many of whom have aspirations, to make it big or to, make records or record. And they never get to that level because they just don't quite get the opportunity. The field is competitive. There's lots of good musicians out there. If you think about St. Louis, I'll bet we have 200 bands kicking around.
I know.
I mean, there's just so many people.
Yeah.
And so breaking into it is one thing, but establishing, going to that next level is where it gets tough. So that's where I'm at right now.
Okay. Is there a title for the book yet? Or?
It's called Shaman.
Shaman. Okay.
Yeah.
So we have to look for that. You don't know when it's going to come out.
Oh,
yet.
well, no, because
You're still
I have to
working
get a
on it.
publisher, and it could be some time. I could be dead by the time it comes out.
Well, hope not.
I hope not either.
Oh. Now, and you're still playing now. You said you had a day job. What were you doing in your day gig?
I work for the National Council on Alcohol and Drug Abuse,
Oh, okay.
and I was at the end I was the associate executive director, and I worked in the substance abuse field for about 34 years, and I was I did all the public relations. I was a spokesperson for the agency, and I was in charge of advocacy, so I did a lot of governmental things, going to Jeff City all the time, advocating for or against something.
Wow. Yeah.
Occasionally Washington, D.C., but mostly local, Missouri politics.
Wow.
And it was work that, has meant a lot to me because, it's well, as you know, I'm sure, in music, it seems to be an occupational hazard that an awful lot of musicians have developed problems with alcohol and drugs, and it's just kind of part of the lifestyle, and it will get you, it'll grab you, and it's grabbed a lot of people and killed a lot of people.
Yes. Yeah.
But that's only one part of it. It's just kids. The National Council was big on prevention and trying to work with educating kids to understand how important it is to stay away from these things. For instance, if you're going to drink, wait till you're older. Like at least 21, ideally beyond that, because the longer you wait, the less chance you have of developing an addiction. Alcoholism. Wow. So that's the work that I did for the last 34 years of my career, and it had real value to me. And the last several years with this opiate crisis that we're having, it was a tough time for me because I was dealing with a lot of parents who'd lost their child, and I felt their pain. So I was happy to retire. It was just time to do other things, and so for me, one thing I learned along the way from just observing people and paying attention is when you retire, don't sit around and do nothing. Do something. Have a hobby. Hobbies. So for me, playing the music and writing has fulfilled that void, and I'm enjoying it both.
Wow. Well, thank you for all the years of service.
Well, thank you.
That's it's admirable.
Well, thanks.
So, wow. Are you recording any music now or anything?
No. The Forested Boys, we did a couple things back in 4 years ago, 2020, when the COVID thing hit. A good friend of ours here in St. Louis, Dave Toretta. Do you know Dave?
Sure do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I've known Dave since the 60s also.
Okay.
He had done a humorous COVID video to kind of entertain himself and his friends because nobody was playing out at the time.
Right.
When the COVID thing first hit, epidemic hit, everybody just quit playing. People weren't hiring, and everybody was sitting, at home. So he did this really clever video, and we really liked it. And so I had the idea. I approached Mike and Pat. I said, "How about we do one too?" But we didn't want to write our own song. And Pat was amenable to it. He said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I don't know. How about Let's Stay Together by Al Green?" Because that's one of my favorite all-time songs. I'm a big Al Green fan.
Yeah, right on.
And so we did, but we decided we would ask friends of ours to participate. So a number of friends, including Russ Bono, Danny Bishop, Steve Scorfina, I'm going to forget somebody now, Michael McDonald, Bonnie Bramlett.
Oh, yeah.
She's back in town. She lives in the St. Louis area again.
Yes.
They all participated in this. Bobby Boards. Who else am I forgetting? I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody. Dave Toretta. So we did this, and we each did it separate in our own house. We had to video video tape ourselves, and then send it to Dave. Playing along to what had been set down as the basic tracks.
Yeah.
And he put it all together. He's good at that. And he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
And that was a blast. I mean, it was a fun project for all of us. And it was kind of a way to entertain ourselves and our friends while we were all laying low.
Right.
And so we did that. And, we at one point we recorded a few songs strictly for promotional purposes, to get our name out when somebody was interested, or, if you contact somebody else, well, what if you can you send me a CD, or can you email me some songs? So we did a few songs, but that's been the extent of any recording.
Is that available anywhere? Can you find
No, it's just something we did for promotion.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Might be fun to watch, actually.
We did it. We did a half hour, or probably a 20-minute video, also for the same purposes, and that is on YouTube. If somebody wants to see it, just Google the Forestwood Boys, and it'll pop up.
Oh, it'll pop up. Oh, great. Wow. Well, that's good. I hope you get a bunch of hits now.
Maybe so.
Yeah. You have an interesting life here, And,
I think so. It's been
fulfilling,
interesting. It's been fulfilling. I've had my share of adventures when I was younger. I mean, there was a reason I got into the substance abuse field. To be very honest with you, my own personal experience and recovery. almost 45 years sober.
Wow, congrats.
Luckily, I found my way out of that morass when I was young, and so have several of my friends, by the way. And so, we got into it together. We got out of it together, and it was, it was my own personal experience that kind of caused me to want to. I became very aware, that I was not alone in this. That there was a significant segment of the population, musician or not, who suffer from alcoholism or drug addiction and substance abuse. And so I just got very interested in it, and I decided to go back to college and get a degree, and I got a degree, and then I went to work in the field and never looked back and never regretted it. I really enjoyed that work. It had personal value to me, I mean, I look back on, coming from the hippie generation that I came from, I still regard myself as an old hippie, but I liked what we stood for in terms of the just basic, simple Ringo love and peace, I still feel like, you can't go wrong with that.
Yeah.
But I tend to think that the one mistake we probably made was indulging ourselves in chemical use, and acting like we knew more than anybody else, that, wasn't going to be a problem, wasn't, it's not going to get me, it's not addictive. And a lot of the stuff, was problematic for us.
Yeah.
And so
Excellent point,
I'm just happy that, it went the way it did.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've had my share of adventures over my life, for sure.
Now, are you still in touch with Michael McDonald? I just read his book, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. If you read it, you'll find a reference to me in there.
Okay.
Yeah, I am in touch with him regularly. We talk all the time. I just
great.
talked to him the other day.
Yeah.
He's out on tour right now
I
with
see
the
that.
Doobies.
Yeah.
And just played Madison Square Garden the other night. Wow. And we'll see him here in St. Louis in a couple weeks.
Oh, great.
And I'll get together with him most
great.
likely.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're very good friends, and it's amazing the way it's worked out. And considering he left as long ago as he did, I mean, I think Mike was 17 when he first went to California.
Wow.
And he came back briefly, and they went back.
Yeah.
And he's been out there ever since, But over the years, we've always been in touch. I've been out to California to see him numerous times. And
he's sort of changed the music world, really.
He did.
He
did. It was
came up with his own sound.
fascinating to watch. Yeah. And I can't say I was surprised because even when we were teenagers, and I've told this story before, but I can remember sitting late at night in the basement. He had a piano, an old stand-up piano that he put tacks in the hammer to give it that kind of rinky-dink sound. And he would play me stuff he had written, and he would sing, and I would just be blown away by how good it was. And I had a lot of faith in him early on that he just possessed that special something, you know. And so when he went out to California, I mean, I guess you could say he struggled for a while, kicking around with local bands, but he's always been a hard worker, and he's always worked hard at his craft, and he developed his own style, and his voice is unique, and it just kind of slowly fell into place. And so those of us that grew up with him, that are still friends with him, we're all very proud of him. He can't not be.
Yeah, sure.
And he's just a great guy. I mean,
that's good.
The public sees him a certain way, and he's what I would have called, especially years ago, a reluctant celebrity. He was more interested in playing music than doing interviews and talking about himself. He told me, I don't know, 35, 40 years ago, he started talking about himself. And but I've watched him, and he's obviously he's become more accustomed and comfortable with it. And
That's
so
good,
people are now starting to see the real Mike. And what's weird about it, I think, is he's the funniest guy I've ever known in my life.
Oh.
He's hilarious.
Oh, okay.
Always has been. He's just absolutely.
He's an Irishman, right?
He's an Irishman. He's through and through. And his dad was kind of the same way. His dad was a funny guy. Always had a joke and a quip. And Mike's just got a great personality, but he's just a very sweet, humble, and he's genuine about that humility. He's never. That's one of the things that's impressed me. I stayed with him for a while back in '79 out in California, and so I got I met a lot of celebrities, and I noticed a lot of them were kind of full of themselves, big egos and believe in their press releases and whatnot. Mike was never like that. He just always stayed the same. Even today, he's still the same guy he always was, and I salute him for that because, being real honest with you, I don't know if I got that much adulation and attention if I could have stayed that down to earth.
Yes.
But he has, and his mom, I think, was partially responsible for that. She always kept him grounded. She was wonderful.
Yeah.
And so in case you can't tell, I'm very fond of him. I
that's
love the
great.
guy. If you read his book, you know that he went through the same thing I did.
Yes.
And we commiserated quite a bit on that. And
he's very humbling in his book.
He is. He's, and I knew he would be. I mean, he would read me quips out of the book the last few years when we'd talk on the phone, and he'd say, he'd read me something. I go, that sounds good. And I was pretty sure, in fact, I was positive that his natural humility would come through, and it certainly did. And there's some humor in there, too. There's a few areas where I laughed out loud.
Oh, sure,
But wonderful human being.
It's a great read. I mean, really,
it is.
Yeah.
It is. It is.
Highly recommended.
I would too.
Especially if you're from St. Louis, you got to read it. So that's great.
Yeah.
Well, I won't keep you any longer, and I
Okay.
appreciate you showing up and spending time
Sure.
here. And
Glad to do it. Thank you.
Maybe we can do it again. Let me know how your tell me the band.
The Forestwood Boys.
Forestwood Boys.
Yeah.
Forestwood Boys.
Yeah.
All right, we have to look at it. And who's all in that again?
Pat Malloy,
Okay.
Mike Newman, and myself. And
Great,
if these guys are talented. They really are. They're good players. They're great singers. We're a product of our generation. We play I would call boomer music. We like the Beatles. We're all Beatles freaks. And I went to Liverpool a few years ago with my kids and just did all the Beatles stuff.
Oh, you did go to Abbey Road Studio?
Oh yeah.
Oh, you did.
Oh
Okay.
no, that's in London.
Oh.
No, we did all the Liverpool stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I loved it. But we're Beatle freaks, so we play a fair amount of Beatles, but we play a lot of different stuff. And so if you want to hear something different, especially if you're a boomer, we play your kind of music.
Right on,
And so I would encourage people to come see us.
I see Mike in the Broken Hipsters.
Yeah. He plays
with Tourette.
With Dave Tourette.
Yeah.
And he also does a solo gig on Tuesday nights down at Hammerstone's.
Oh, okay.
And he's been doing that
for a long time.
Years,
With Dan.
Dan Randan.
Dan, yeah.
That's another thing. What do they call it? Lucky Dan and Naked Mike. I
Yes.
think. And,
Yeah.
So Mike's spread out pretty, and he's still working full time at Gravity Strings.
That's right.
So he's a hard working son of a guy.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
But
he's a great musician too.
Great musician, great guy. Just a sweet. I couldn't be luckier playing with these two guys.
Yeah.
The only reason I'm playing is because we've been friends for so many years.
Well, we're coming out to see you.
All right, you be the judge of that.
All right. Well, Dan, Duncan, thank you so much,
Thanks, Vince.
man. This has been great.
Thank you.
And we're gonna get your story out because this is fun. This is
Okay.
a lot of fun.
Well, when we get done with this, I'm going to tell you a few people I think you need to have as guests.
Okay, that sounds great. Yeah. All right. Thanks
Thank you.
again, Dan. Okay, we'll see you at the next gig.
All right.
All right.
Remember to like and subscribe to this podcast, and we'll see you backstage.